Okay, it is exactly 8:30, and welcome to J115 Introduction to Corrections, Week 6. We have 5 more weeks to go after this, and so I'm going to spend some time talking to you about the assignments for this week, but then I'm also going to go over the requirements for Week 7 for the project, because that's the next project. You did week 2, you did week 4, and now week 7. I am still in the process of grading week 4. I will finish that in the next day or so. And but make sure that you listen very carefully to what I say tonight concerning the project for week 7, so that you don't mess that one up, so that you can maximize your points there. So let's get started. And I'll share my screen with you. Okay. And again, going down tells you that you have 2 more lectures after today, week 8 and week 10. All right. And then I will provide link to that today's lecture. All right. Let me refresh this. Okay. Let's see. So in week 6, we're going to talk about the prison experience, male versus female. Your assignments are geared towards that topic. Your book, corrections, section 6, 8, and 11. I sent you copies of the PowerPoints earlier, so you should have them. We're going to go over classification, myth versus fact, and some things from a prison lieutenant, some thoughts from a prison lieutenant before we're going to go over that, and then I'm going to take you to week 7. Issues unique to female inmates. That's your discussion post that was due last night, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Your reply post due this Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then finally, you're going to complete the written assignment, 2 written assignments, 3 issues in male prisons today, and the Stanford prison experience. I'll go over that in a few minutes. And then the motto, adversity is the springboard to success, is something that you are familiar with because I discussed that during week 1. So let's take a look at the course calendar. Okay. It populates in a second. Here it is. Okay. So here we are, right here with your reading assignment, which again is included. So I gave you that already. Okay. Then your initial post, then your lecture tonight, your reply post. Then your 2 written assignments that I just told you about a few minutes ago. And then next week, you have your reading, your initial post, reply post, your written assignment and course project, which I will talk about. That'll be due a week from Sunday. So let's go and take a look at week 6 module. Well, before that, let's look at the assignments. Again, you have a rubric for that, and it tells you what you need to do. And here is the rubric. Make sure that you read the rubric and match it up. It's a 2-page paper, and you must cover all of these issues. And if you don't make the 2 pages, you're going to lose points. Not 1.5, but 2 complete pages. APA, citations in the body, references in the end, and cover sheet. Do not use Wikipedia or other generic sources. Only a few of you have done that before. And you're going to do that for that assignment. Okay, and that again is due the 11th. Okay, so then let's go back. Let's look at the next written assignment, Stanford Prison Experience, which involves a site, and it tells you where to find it. Some of you may have seen the movie. I think there's an HBO movie or a movie that was on Netflix or something or the other. Anyway, that's also due this Sunday, the 25th. I mean, the 11th, for 25 points. It's a one-page paper. Now, after viewing the website, you cover these issues. Make sure you have citations in the body and references at the end. How do you do that with that? Citations in the body, the statements that you make, say where they came from. The Stanford Prison Experience, whether it's the video, the movie, or whatever, you put that source in there. And then, of course, your citations and references. Very, very, very important to get your 25 points. And then finally, you have the discussion post, which you're familiar with that. Okay. So now let's go back and let's go to the lesson content. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the relationship classifications in prisons, what happens in prisons, and so forth. And we're going to deal with classification first. Myth versus fact, I'm just going to show you how that works. And then a prison lieutenant. And then remember, I said I'm going to go over the course project for week 7 at the end. So prisons have different classifications depending on the kind of prison, depending on the offenders, crime that they're charged with, and all of these are involved. So if the more serious the offense, the higher the risk level, and so there are different institutions, maximum, minimum, super, that provide the protection for the inmates and also for the public, as well as the prison workers. So there are many needs in prison that, of course, are given, such as drug and alcohol treatment. I've already said before and said it many times that if an individual has a drug or alcohol problem, it is very, very important that that issue be addressed. Otherwise, you're going to have a person in for, I don't care how long you keep them in. When they get out, if you don't address that issue and they receive the proper treatment, they're going to become recidivists, because it is quite common, especially in drug instances, that individuals commit crimes to support their drug habits. So there's a correlation between the two. So it is important that we have good programs to deal with these two issues. Education, it's quite clear that it is cheaper to educate than to incarcerate. It is also quite clear that those who are educated commit fewer crimes. I have talked about this many times, but I'll talk about it again, that I participated in a program called Probation Challenge when I was a practicing lawyer. It was started by one criminal court judge, the late R. Eugene Pincham, in our main criminal court building. And the concept was that if individuals came before him that qualified for probation, and they were not necessarily individuals who committed violent offenses, and they had not received their high school diploma, he would offer the choice between going through this program, Probation Challenge, where at the end of the program, if you successfully completed it, you received your GED, and so general education diploma. And those individuals would then come back before the court, and then the case would be dismissed. Very, very unique. Well, here's what we discovered, that those individuals who completed that program did not go back to committing crime in most cases. In most cases. In fact, many of them took advantage of the other part of the program, which was just voluntarily, and that is because the program took place at a junior college in Chicago, Olive Harvey Junior College on Chicago's South Side, that those individuals oftentimes decided not just to get their GED, but they would also pursue their associate's degree at the college, which gives them more education and less time to commit crimes. Well, and then a few went on and four-year institutions after that. And so, in other words, education helped those individuals tremendously. And then there's the job training skills program where people are taught. I know one individual who has a barber college that operates in a jail and a prison, where individuals are able to obtain their license to cut hair and be barbers. I don't know if they have beauticians, but that would be a good idea. And anything to work on vehicles. Anyway, the vocational training that individuals receive also decreased the number of individuals who will be repeat offenders because of the fact that those individuals will take honest jobs and begin to make honest livings honest living and support themselves and their family. And so the facilities that are really super max, they don't offer that, but I think it's the max. I know it's the regular one and the minimum that offer it. Once an individual is incarcerated, they have a different lifestyle. And unfortunately, the more an individual is incarcerated, the more they adapt to that culture of being an inmate. They actually learn how to communicate with each other. They pick up the habit called prisonization, and they begin to participate in gang activity, the language they speak, and other activities that are not so good. And contraband is something that they become exposed to, and weapons, drugs, alcohol, clothing, and so forth. The point of the matter is inmates who even go in, and that's one of the problems I have with individuals who go in and they later find out that those individuals didn't commit the crime, but they've spent many years in the culture. Well, even though they went in innocent completely, later determined to be innocent, freed, but the culture that they lived in now has changed their life. So when they come out, they have the same kind of issues that individuals who are paroled that will have in their lives. And that is living and not having a hard time adapting back to society. Two important issues in prison are, of course, sex. That's because, number one, individuals are cut off from their mates. And then there's violence. And so it's a big problem in prisons. There was a law that was signed by President Bush, the Prison Rape Elimination Act, which supposedly provided some teaching to inmates and staff. However, the issue still continues even after that, because it is not a thing that you teach an individual. An individual is going to have a need or desire for sex, and they're either going to take it out on each other, or the other problem is that inmates will have corrupt guards and officers who will take those individuals and use them for sex, because it is believed that their word will be believed over the inmate. And then, on the other hand, there is a lot of violence because there are so many individuals there. And as I already talked about, the gangs and so forth. And so as a result, also because of the overcrowdedness, there are serious attacks that may take place on other individuals, on staff, other inmates. For example, it is common knowledge that if a person goes in with a sex crime, particularly rape or pedophile, that they have to segregate that individual. It's also common that if you are a law enforcement officer or a person who worked in the system and you end up going to jail, that they're going to have to segregate you because you're subject to violence from individuals that you probably encountered or had something to do with them being incarcerated. So it creates a lot of problems. And so with the shortage of staff and the overcrowdedness, then that's a formula for disaster, and that's a formula for increased rather than decreased violence. So now when we get to women's prisons, there are some additional issues that are on the rise. For example, women with the issue of going to jail for nonviolent crime and are incarcerated because they may have been the carrier of drugs, or they may have a partner that they were trying to help, someone they loved or cared, then they end up incarcerated. And so the population goes up. And then you'll find there are individuals who commit crimes because of the fact of they've been abused by an individual. I know a person who went to prison because she killed her husband because he had been very abusive and violent with her. And unfortunately, she was not acquitted in the criminal case and had to serve time in prison, even though she was the victim of many beatings. So with those kind of situations, females are incarcerated. And so some of the problems that face women, females, is there's some networks that mothers and women health issues take place. The sexual abuse is a big problem, which includes the male guards and female guards, but especially male guards who take advantage of the women sexually. And then sometimes there are pregnancies that come about, or women are incarcerated who are pregnant and the baby is born while the person is behind bars. Then the other issue is there are women who have children, and the women, of course, are separated from their children when they are incarcerated, and they go into depression and sometimes become suicidal. And so these are just some of the problems that females face while are incarcerated. So the key thing is that the prison experience for male and female has some similarities, but then there are some areas that I just covered a minute ago that specifically affect the female who is incarcerated. You should also be aware that there are more male prisoners in most jurisdictions because there are more males that are incarcerated, but there now is an increased number of females being incarcerated because of drugs and other issues involved. But here's my point, is that because there are not as many facilities, there is a very serious overcrowding issue that takes place with females. Okay. And then we have this myth versus fact, which I'm not going to spend time going over, but I'm going to have you to go through. Inmates easily adjust to prison life. Do you think that is? You think that's true or false? I'd say, was it myth or fact? They adjust to easily, and I say it's a myth, and I submit it. Depression difficulties are common, as I already talked about. And then you go to the next one. Prisons are controlled and inmates are closely monitored. Myth or fact? So you can submit that. So I'm not going to go over that and spend much time going over those. You can go over those on your own. But you should know the answer to that from your readings of those chapters. So now I'm going to take the time to share this video with you. And I'm going to take my
Corrections Lieutenant, Minnesota Corrections Facility in St. Cloud, which is an intake facility for the whole department of Minnesota. I've been in the department for 28 years. I started as a corrections officer, more as a corrections sergeant, and now my current position, corrections lieutenant. I'm also the team leader for our special operations response team, and I also do a lot of training in that area.
So what do you need to be a corrections officer? What are the minimum requirements?
GED or high school diploma. You apply online, and then they set up the testing. The test consists of a writing component and a video component. If you pass that test, you get an oral interview, a series of questions that will be scored, and then you pass that. Then all candidates who pass that will fill out a form for criminal background check, a predatory offender check, and a criminal history check. So we'll start doing that. If you pass all those, then you'll get offered a job. You get on a list to get offered a job. You need to be can't be incarcerated within the past year, and if you were, you need to provide documentation that you're off supervised parole or release time, proving that's been completed.
Okay, so you do not need a 2-year degree or any experience. High school is sufficient.
Yes.
Okay.
And then if you get hired, you'll have to pass a physical exam. There'll be drug testing, TB testing, and then once you pass all that, you do 6 weeks of an academy, and then first year employment is probation.
Okay, so lots of training that goes along, on-the-job training that goes along with this.
Yeah, the vast majority of that first 6 weeks is on the job, and then after that, you start on job shadowing stuff.
Okay, so if I were hired as a correctional officer, is there a typical day, or what would my day look like?
Well, you drive to work, pick up your radio, your keys, you put on everybody asks for a utility bill, cups, chemical irritants, report to your post. You can work anywhere from the living unit to your control center to supervising an offender crew. There's a lot of different posts for officers. The average day has a lot of observation and seem to be boring at times, but that can escalate to very dangerous and wild times in a split second. A lot of our situations are just dealing with officer presence, communication skills, verbal directives. We mainly get our compliance that way. If that doesn't work, go to the force continuum all the way up to hands-on, chemical irritants, intermediate weapons, whatever it might be. And it's not uncommon. We have fights quite regular. We deal with a lot of incompatibility issues and people getting restored. It's just ongoing.
Okay, so you mentioned that you are the intake facility. So do you classify inmates? Can you talk about that, and what level of security is this institution?
The security levels for the institutions go 1 through 5, with 1 being the minimum, 5 being max. They determine the facility's security levels with operational needs and structural needs. For instance, the level 4 has requirements for mandatory armed outside patrol, or you might have secure perimeter mandates for armed officers on questions and take pictures of tattoos. They see health service right away, and then they're brought into the intake unit, which is an area I supervise. They spend about 30 days in there. They go through orientation. First full day they're there, and then they're seen by health service, psychology, alcohol, drug assessment, education, testing. A lot of things going on to help their classification. Within the 14 days, first 14 days, their case manager should enter data relevant to their classification score. And their classification score is a number, and it's the factors of your current criminal conviction, what that is, your past criminal history in the last 10 years, your behavior in prison in the last 5 years, and then there are blocks in the classification. For instance, if you have life without parole, you cannot go into 1 level 5 no matter what. So it doesn't matter any of the other factors. So when within 28 to 45 days, the classification officer and your team meet, they give you a score, and that'll determine your classification. At that point, we'll decide by classification, treatment needs, and there's a number of factors of what facility you need to move to, and then we'll transfer from there. And it's not uncommon for us to get 40 offenders in a day, 40 out, so it'll be very busy.
So the intake part doesn't happen in a day or two. It actually takes a few weeks.
Yeah, when they come into EO, they probably spend approximately the first 30 days in the intake unit, then they move to the next unit. Sometimes they can transfer right from that house. Probably about 3 weeks, they're done with most of their intake needs, all their assessments and testing and stuff like that.
You talked about a lot of things that a correctional officer might do. And in our text, we've talked a lot about professionalism and issues related to just being healthy as someone who works in this field. What contributes to correctional officer professionalism?
Well, you're supposed to treat everybody with respect, be courteous, and give respect and get respect. People that seem to be successful in this career have the ability to deal with the stress that we have in this type of environment, have a way to deal with it away from work also. They tend to take the high road in tough situations.
Do you have advice for students today who are interested in going into this field?
Yeah, most people that are good corrections officers are good observers, they're good communicators, they have good de-escalation skills. I mean, these people are incarcerated, but they are human beings, and if you treat them as such, as long as that's what they command at the time, if they escalate beyond that, that's another situation. Those are the people that are most successful. And like I said, there are a lot of rewards as far as dealing with people, and sometimes you can make a difference in situations. But keep in mind, we go from, it can be very boring and you get complacent to very exciting in split seconds. So you see a lot of different things around here. Really, even though it seems dull, there never is a dull moment around here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so you heard the different things that was covered here. Let's go back to where you can see me. Okay, so now that you've seen that, you see some of the issues that relate to inmates being incarcerated. So now let's go back to the classroom for a minute. And then let me share my screen again. Go back to that. And let's get rid of that. Then let's go to Module 7 for a few minutes. Module 7. Assignments. Okay, as you may or may not recall that, and I'm not going to talk about the written assignment, I'm going to strictly talk about the course project. At this particular point, this is when you do your interview, when your interview is submitted. And remember, in interviewing the individual, include the answers to the required interview questions. The required interview questions are located right here in Module 1. I also covered them under the Content tab. If you go to, okay, the interview questions, interview overview. These are the 5 required questions. In addition to these required questions, the interview should include 3 questions of your choice. Very, very, very important. So you have that. So that's the place that you find the interview questions. So let's go back to 7, where the actual assignment is. And let's go back to the assignment. And recall what it says in the rubric. In the rubric, it tells you about what's required. And I already showed you where to find the questions. Now, the one thing I want to bring to your attention is you need a cover sheet. It should be a minimum of 2 pages because that's how long it takes to adequately deal with those questions. Notice this, bold. This is the difference in APA this time. References are not necessary. References are not necessary. Citations, though, in-text citations are required. How do you do in-text citations in this? The person that you're interviewing. That's the source is the person you interview. And that's how you do your in-text citations. So they should be throughout your paper. And that's pretty much it. Now, be aware of this, that this particular portion of your project, it tells you, will be incorporated in your final paper, which is 2 weeks away after week 9, or 3 weeks away from now. And it tells you what you need to do. I'm not going to go over the requirements for that yet. I'll go over that during week 8 when we come back together again. But I wanted to make sure that you understood the requirements of week 7. Don't send me a message asking me where to find the questions because I've covered it extensively. And I'm just going to say to you, you need to look at the recording that I did today. And it should very clearly tell you what you need to do. It's very easy. Part 1 was week 2. Name your agency and contact person that you intend on interviewing in one of the 4 areas, either jail, prison, probation, or parole. Week 4 should involve your interview, your information research, which I'm going to be grading this week. So it doesn't matter that even if I didn't finish that by week 7, it's totally independent of what you have to do. But I will have it graded by then. And then make sure that you do that because next week there is no lecture. So that's it. That's what I wanted to provide for you. I wanted to give you an opportunity to be able to make sure that you finish with your project adequately. We are moving along very fast. The quarter will be over December 14th, which is basically, I think it's December 14th. Yeah, I believe it is. I think so. But anyway, in December. But I think it's the last second Friday in the month of December. So just to make sure, let's go take a look.
calendar again so we can be clear on when the course actually ends, though we're ways from that. So let's go to December. Yeah, I was right. December 14th is when the course actually ends. So you want to make sure that you have everything in accordingly, okay? And that's it for today. I'm going to be posting this for each of you and then send you a link. So I'm going to say good night at this time.